So the last thing we're going to talk about is something that we kind of introduced with the unit circle, and that's thinking about flat triangles, right? Where it doesn't really make sense to have an opposite or a hypotenuse or an adjacent side. So it says because reference triangles will be flat on the axes, the values of the point on the unit circle at these angles are the best way to determine the trigonometric values of the quadrantal angles. So for example, if I drew, I'm just going to show you with this one how it actually does make sense. If I drew a 0-degree angle and tried to make a triangle here, we could think of the opposite side being 0, the adjacent side, so if we're on the unit circle, being 1, and the hypotenuse coming right down and laying on top of the adjacent side. So looking at those values, first off, so these are my three values because I have a flat triangle that doesn't grow, so my opposite side is 0. Radian measure is also 0 for 0 degrees. So the point on the unit circle goes along with these values, so this is 1, 0. So the sine of the angle is going to be the y value, which is 0. And if I use opposite over adjacent, opposite is 0, adjacent is 1, and that does equal 0. So it works with a flat triangle, but we can just basically take the point on the unit circle. Cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse. I meant to leave that to 0, sorry. Cosine of 0, adjacent over hypotenuse, 1 over 1 is 1. And we see that that's also true on our point in the unit circle, that the x value is 1. And then tangent, we know is y over x, or sine over cosine, and or opposite over adjacent, and if I just use my opposite over adjacent, I get 0 over 1, which is also 0. So that's how we can find the values. We don't really think about flat triangles, but it would work if we did. So at 90 degrees, we'd be at pi over 2 in radians. The point on the unit circle up at 90 is 0, 1. The sine is y. The cosine is the x value. And the tangent is the y over the x. Now we have our unfortunate situation of dividing by 0 here. Right? And we know that we can't actually do that, so we say this one is undefined or it doesn't have a tangent value. Moving on to the next point on our unit circle. Best circle, that's okay. -1, 0. We're at pi radians. Sine is y, cosine is x, tangent is y over x. And so we get 0 there, because 0 divided by anything is 0. 3 pi over 2. Point is 0, -1. So we have y, x, y over x. So again, we have an undefined value at 3 pi over 2 or 270 for tangent. And everything for 0 or 360 is going to match 0, so I'm not going to bother drawing it again because we know that those angles fall in the same spot. So this is also 0. So if I'm going to just randomly do one of these questions and I'm not filling out a whole table, what I quickly do for these, and what you want to do for your work, is recognize it's a quadrantal angle, but create a flat triangle, label the one point you need, so I'm doing 90, so I need 0, 1. Recognize that sine is y, so the sine of 90 is 1. Tangent of 270, I could even just put a point down there, so that's the point 0, -1. Tangent is y over x, so -1 over 0 is undefined. Pi is back here. We get -1, 0. Cosine is the x value, so that's a -1. And I already have a picture for 3 pi over 2 or 270 up here. Sine is the y value, so I got -1.